Now let me ask you, how many of you have heard that there is something called AB 715 that is being pushed through the legislation, through the state assembly and state senate in California? Anybody has heard of AB 715? Imam Taha, Mahmoud, one? Yeah, 5 of you. Let me tell you, this is probably one of the most dangerous pieces of legislations targeting public schools in California ever. And this is being introduced by Zionist legislators to silence any criticism of Israel in public school. Basically, this is meant to target teachers who feel it's okay to talk about history, talk about the Nakba, talk about the history of what Palestinians had endured. And this is being pushed mostly to stifle that freedom of speech and add to it. Basically, they will penalize such teachers, they will change the curriculum, and they will allow for students to complain and say, I felt offended when someone talked about Palestine. This is similar to what they're doing at the community college in San Diego, basically saying, no, don't say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, except that this is going to all public schools. This is a desperate measure because they see young people shaping public opinion in America, because they're getting their news not from mainstream, they're getting it from Palestinians on the ground, citizen journalists who are posting on their social media. So these geniuses, these Zionist legislators, want to make sure that students from K to 12 don't get that. Not only that, they're pushing for the state to fund a position for someone whose job would be, in the name of fighting anti-Semitism, there would be an anti-Semitism preventer or preventing coordinator. This is the person and their agency that will keep track of the teachers. This is similar to what Trump promised during the campaign. Anyone remembers Project 2025? Which meant to restrict a lot of things, and some of it is the Esther Project, which is restrict free speech on campuses, university campuses. The reason I'm saying that is, unfortunately, it's passing through. And they did it behind the scenes and rushed through it over the last 2 days. And just about a couple of hours ago, it passed through the Senate, the state Senate, I think 35 versus 0 or 34 versus 0, meaning not one single opposition. And when we met with people, they said it's a bad idea, elected officials. But the pressure coming from what's the one that introduces called the Legislative Jewish Caucus, which is made up mostly of Zionist members of the state legislature. And they're saying the pressure we're getting, there's election we have to deal with, there's a pressure of voters, there are calls we're getting. And when I asked, did you get calls from the Muslim community? They said very few. And I have to admit, it was brought in very suddenly because they introduced it a few months ago and they failed. And then they worked behind the scenes, and now they brought it in very quickly the last 3 days. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Rushed it through. And I have to say, our community is not as organized. We send the emails, we send the action alert, and this is not a blame game. I know our community is not activated in that same speed. But there's an issue. When I talk to people, and it's gonna go through, and we're looking at ways to push it, we'll see, legally, file a lawsuit, because it's what it will do, it will basically say there's only one way to address anti-Semitism. Basically, it's gonna be based on what's known as the International Holocaust Remembrance, I think, Alliance. That's what it's called, the IHRA. The definition of anti-Semitism, according to this agency, is that it equates and conflates legitimate criticism of the state of Israel. So if you say Israel is committing a genocide, if you say Israel is an apartheid state, now that new law would say you cannot say that because that's anti-Semitism, because since Israel has a lot of Jews, by saying that you're offending the Jews, then that's anti-Semitic. Imagine, we have the right to criticize our own government here. We have the right to criticize every single government. We have the right to criticize Trump and everybody below him. There's one thing that we're not allowed to criticize. What is that sacred cow? Israel, right? So we're going to fight against that, and we're going to push against that. What I don't want to see in our community is feeling helpless and hopeless. Because that's what I'm hearing from the community. When I say, why didn't you call? Did you vote in November? The majority tell me, no, I didn't vote, because I didn't see anybody that impressed me. Why didn't you activate? Did you go on the protest? Did you show up to the city council? Did you show up to the community college here? Did you show up to a school board meeting? And many say no, because they feel we're tired, we're helpless, we're hopeless. Wallahi, we have absolutely no right to feel helpless or hopeless. If you ever feel helpless and hopeless, look at the people of Gaza. If anyone has the right to be hopeless, if anyone has the right to feel helpless, if anyone has the right to feel tired, it's the people of Gaza. And they don't say that. And they've paid the highest price any people can pay for their dignity, for their freedom, and the dignity of the ummah. So we can't, in the comfort of our country, in the comfort of ability to do democratic work, in the comfort of our masajid and the safety of the law, we can't. We owe it, wallahi, we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our brothers and sisters in Palestine and in Gaza. We owe it for our students, our children, their future, to keep push back. Because here's the good news. For the first time ever in America's history and the history of the apartheid state and the genocide state, the public opinion has drastically changed in America. Drastically, in a way that is unbelievable. It's impossible to explain. And it created a window for us. What am I saying? What am I talking about? Today, for the first time ever, there are more, according to several polls, there are more people in America, not Muslim Americans, average Americans. There are more people in America today who call themselves pro-Palestinian than those who say I'm pro-Israeli. This was unheard of. The gap was so huge from a political science, social studies, social science, was impossible to shift. They will tell you. For the first time today, in the recent poll that was released, 28% of Americans say we are pro-Palestinian versus 22% who say they're pro-Israel. 28 to 22. And then when you look at the numbers and ask the category between 18-year-old and 34, young professionals, 18 to 34, that number goes from to 37% say we're pro-Palestine to 11% who say we are pro-Israel. Now, this is unbelievable. A week before that, another poll, and listen to this number. These numbers are important because what we're witnessing today, wallahi, is nothing short of a historic miracle. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A historic miracle today. When people were asked, do you support Israel's military action in Gaza? Back in the days, the number used to be 70%. Whenever Israel does anything, 70%. Yes, yes, yes. The last number from Gallup poll, you can search it, 3 weeks ago, and it's getting worse now for them. 3 weeks ago, the number was 32% of Americans said we support what Israel is doing. 60% said no, we don't support. 41% of Americans said this is a genocide. Almost a majority, almost half the country recognizes what you and I know already of. By the way, when you look at the numbers, because it's important, we live in a state that is democratic, liberal, progressive. So we said 32% of Americans say we oppose what Israel is doing. When they looked at the Democrats among them, you know what's the percentage? 8%. Only 8% of Democrats support what Israel is doing in Gaza. I want to conclude by saying, I'm not sharing numbers for the sake of numbers. I'm telling you, you and I today are at a crossroads. We are watching a window that might close in a year, in 6 months. What is that window? Today, a majority of people in America see Israel for what it is, a genocidal state driven by a settler colonial, racist and violent and savage ideology. You and I knew that because we know history, we read. We don't take our news from ABC, CBS, NBC. But now fellow Americans are seeing that. But that has not translated in a change in policy yet. Political leaders continue to push the AIPAC agenda because they got money. They're afraid to lose their seat. Why is there a gap? Why is there a gap between what a majority of Americans, let's look, 80+% of Democrats, let's say Democratic voters, oppose the genocide, oppose what Israel is doing, want for, maybe less, want for military aid to be cut to Israel. But when we look at the number of the leadership, 95% still vote what AIPAC wants them to do among Democrats, as an example. With the Republicans, it's much worse, by the way. Why is that? Because they're counting on you and me and the average American today, whose eyes are open today to what is happening, that they will not organize politically. This is the reality. That window that I'm talking about is you and I organizing ourselves as a community, but organizing fellow Americans who know, they discover what happened now, but they're not sure how to drive that new knowledge, how to vote, who to vote for, who are the friends, who are the foes, what are the policies. This is going to be up to us, my dear brothers and sisters. And I'm here not to fundraise, so keep paying attention, don't get distracted. But I'm here to tell you, wallahi, Allah placed us at a moment in history today where each one of us will be asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As you watch every day, every single day, dozens of Palestinian children being killed, wounded, maimed, let alone women, children, and elderly, men. Every single day, we see them dismembered, cut in pieces, losing limbs. You're talking about 18,000 Palestinian toddlers, infant killed. You're talking about 30,000 orphans. You're talking about almost 30,000 who have lost a limb, and they're going to live with missing limbs for the rest of their lives. This is an amana. These are our brothers and sisters. Wallahi, the Palestinians did not choose for that. They would like to live the way you and I live. They would be okay to live the way, take care of their families, have their jobs, go to school, enjoy watching their kids and grandkids. But Allah placed them in a position, Allah tested them, and they lived up to the test. They stood to defend the honor of the ummah. What are we doing for the honor of the ummah? What are we doing to at least stop our tax money from going to support their murder? So please, what I'm saying, organize. You have a great organization, mashallah, a great team with CARE in San Diego. What I ask you to do is join their effort, volunteer, sign up to their email list. When you get an action alert, so when we tell you Congress is pushing for this, the state Senate is pushing for this, you can act in a minute, because that's what the Zionists do. In an hour or two, they can mobilize 10,000 people to call and say, do this. We can do more. The people who oppose the genocide are way more than the people who support the genocide in number. We're not, as Malcolm X, rahimahullah, said, we are not outnumbered, we are out-organized. We have way more in numbers, but we're not as organized. Join CARE, support your organization, learn about their events. Mashallah, they're doing the annual banquet for CARE on October 26th, great speakers, but it's not about the speakers, it's about you being there. So politicians know that there's an organized Muslim community here that is going to build alliances and coalitions, that's going to organize people to vote, that's going to go and support as you individually, not as CARE, support candidates who stand for values that are dear to our heart. At least no candidate should get get elected if they support genocide. And I'll lastly say, on your way out, you're going to see some information about how to become a member of CARE. How many of you are members of CARE, meaning you donate on a monthly basis, whatever the amount? MashaAllah, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. And a measure like this, MashaAllah, at least 5, 6. Everyone should be. Because when we go and meet with politicians, wallahi, they ask me all the time, maybe 90% of the time, how many people do you represent? I tell them I represent 1 million Muslims in California. I say, yeah, everybody says that, including my intern, right? The way they judge that is the real power is membership. So the way to become a member is just pick up an envelope, choose any amount of your liking. It supports CARE financially, that is good. It gives it consistent support, but it gives us the power to say we are a strong community with membership, with strength, so politicians can pay attention. Wallahi, so many politicians are ready to shift. So many, I'm not exaggerating. So many are ready, but they're afraid. They want to know that there's a community that is willing to vote, support, speak up when they start getting attacked by the Zionists. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give victory to our brothers and sisters in Palestine. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our shortcomings in not supporting them as they deserve to be supported. We ask Allah to forgive us because our money is contributing to their misery. And I ask Allah to wipe those shortcomings through doing whatever we can do, and including the only community that can change policies towards Palestine is not the Muslims in Pakistan, not the Muslims in Egypt, not the Muslims in Syria, not the Muslims anywhere else. The only Muslim community that can do it are the Muslims who live in America. Because this is our policy, this is our government, this is our democracy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us able to do that. Jazakumullah khair.